Chief Justice Chandrachud has read the Riot Act quite literally to the State Bank of India, demanding that all details related to electoral bonds be placed in the public domain by the end of this week. I'm Barkha Dutt. You're with the Mojo story. Our big focus today is on the big political story. The Supreme Court has directed the Election Commission of India to place in the public domain all details related to the now scrapped electoral bond scheme by the end of this week. The bank, the SBI, will have to hand over this information to the Election Commission by the end of tomorrow, the 12th of March. The Supreme Court decision and the scathing words came in response to a plea filed by the SBI, I beg your pardon, asking for more time. In fact, asking for time till June, saying that they needed more time to collate the information because there was no central repository. The Supreme Court would hear none of it. In fact, the Supreme Court turned around and asked the lawyers, the top lawyers for the SBI, including Harish Salve, what were you all doing for 26 days? Now, it's important to remember that even former bureaucrats who have executed the bonds, people like Subhash Garg, have said on this program that the SBI needed not 10 months, but 10 minutes to place this information in the public domain. And perhaps the SBI did not take its own decision in this matter, but was perhaps asked by the government to do so. We don't know as a matter of evidence whether that's the case, but it will be interesting to see what happens over the next few days. To discuss this big, huge political story where we have, heard the Supreme Court use phrases like willful disobedience to the State Bank of India. Let's introduce our guest on the program today. We have a very distinguished panel. Sandip, Ghose, political columnist, someone I always introduce as a supporter of the Prime Minister with caveats, is with us. Welcome back to the program. Mohandas is with us after a long gap. Mohan, of course, has been arguing that one should not be imputing motives to the SBI, but how will he respond in the light of the Supreme Court decision? He's been a big voice about cleaning up politics. So what will he say on this? We'll find out in a moment from now. Sumanth, Raman has offered a cynical analysis on Twitter today, saying even if this information comes by the end of this week, the voters will be none the wiser. We'll find out why. Sanjay Hegde, a moment of personal vindication for him. He's one of the senior lawyers in this case, and it's a big win for the legal team that has been arguing for transparency, is with us. Congratulations, Sanjay, and welcome to the program. And finally, our very distinguished guest on the program, former Chief Election Commissioner SY Quraishi, who's been among a long line of election commissioners who's been asking for transparency in political funding. Welcome to the program, everybody. Let me set the ball rolling by actually playing a very small comment of what the Chief Justice said in court as he announced the deadline for when this information has to be placed in the public domain. Listen in.
We direct that ECI shall compile the information and publish the details in its official website no later than by 7 days. By 15 March, by 5 p.m. on 15 March 2024.
So they looked around for a while. There was a moment of silence that wasn't a mistake in our audio transcript. And then they came up with this date. Very important. I'll get Mr. Quraishi to set the ball rolling. Dr. Quraishi, as a former Chief Election Commissioner, you must be pleased at what the Supreme Court has decided. But there are still lots of question marks. Ki hafte ke baad mein milega kya? What will it actually change? And what is the import of what the Supreme Court has done today? Quraishi Sahab.
Of course, I'm delighted because from day one, I've been arguing against it because whatever transparency existed before 2017 was killed by the budget. Mr. Pai, please don't show your body language. Please wait for your time. Let me complete.
Okay. We'll all be polite and we'll all speak one at a time. Please, Quraishi.
Well, one at a time.
Yes,
but this body language, he should say this when his turn comes.
Okay, sir.
Look,
Okay.
stop being a tyrant. Stop being a tyrant, okay? Please. Please,
Oh,
please
oh,
respect.
okay.
Stop being
Give
a
me
tyrant, okay?
hold.
Okay.
I'm just
Okay.
objecting to your body language. This is wrong.
Okay,
Okay,
Dr.
anyway,
Qureshi.
You're
give me a
not
minute.
calling me my
Let's
friend.
be
I'm
let's
citizen of
let's
a
be
free country
friendly.
like you are. Just keep quiet.
Let's be friendly. Let's be friendly. Let's be friendly. Let's be
Give me
polite.
a minute. Give me a
Okay,
minute,
we'll give you a
Barkha.
minute, and then Mr. Pai can come right after that.
Correct,
Please.
correct.
Yes. Yes.
Look, I would take you back to the budget speech of Mr. Arun Jaitley, in which he said the first statement was music to my ear. He says, without transparency of political funding, free and fair elections are not possible. So we were happy. His second sentence, that for the last 70 years we have failed to achieve that. And the third sentence, he killed whatever transparency existed then. And what was the transparency then? Every donation of more than 20,000 was reported to the Election Commission. 20,000. Now 20 crores or 2,000 crores will now be kept secret. That was the decision. So, which is why we were very delighted when Supreme Court turned it down, made it unconstitutional. And today the judgment, when it reprimanded the SBI to give the details within 24 hours, because it is available at the press of a button. And finally, the main question, that whether people will benefit. The one reason why people will still be groping is that Supreme Court in its original judgment also did not say, okay, please link the donor with the recipient. That task will have to be done by all of us now. But so SBI was not supposed to do it, and which is why they wanted time. So therefore, they were asking for a wrong time for wrong thing.
So basically, what you're saying is the Supreme Court has upheld the principle, but in terms of the specifics, Dr. Qureshi, who gave how much to whom, that is
Yes.
going to be left now for journalists, civil society to join the dots.
Yes, quite right. And possibly subsequently, maybe people go back to the court and they ask the SBI to even those connect the dots and give us that information, because that was the main reason. So that we identify the quid pro quo. Now for that, the nation will have to do hard work to find the quid pro quo. But of course, there will be intelligent or smart guesses, but they're neither here nor there.
Okay, now I'll bring in Mohandas Pai, and I'm sure we're going to have a very friendly conversation between Qureshi Saab and Mohandas Pai at the end of this, because that's the spirit of public debate. That's the spirit of our democracy, and we're all going to end this program smiling, even if we disagree. Mohandas Pai, my question to you. You said in the past, don't impute motives to the SBI. Subhash Garg was the officer who implemented the bonds. He said on my program, he said the SBI has been put in a very difficult position. The SBI would not have taken this decision themselves. The government would have asked them to do so. The government should have filed it. This is, Mr. Garg's position. Now the Supreme Court has said this today. What do you think is the importance of this judgment? Do you think the SBI has been embarrassed? Do you think the government has been embarrassed?
I don't think the SBI, the government, has been embarrassed, because what the SBI was trying to do is link the donor with the recipient, which would have taken a lot of time, because they are separate databases kept in two separate places. They had kept secrecy so that there can be no leakage from their staff. Nobody will be able to collect, etc. It was a difficult task. And I would believe a 250-year-old bank to obey the Supreme Court. If the difficulty, they'll go to Supreme Court. So I would not attribute any motives. And to believe the Supreme Court can be influenced by government, especially when by government, I mean, SBI could be influenced by government when the Supreme Court is involved, is a fantasy which we should not fall prey to. All right. The SBI had difficulty. They went before the Supreme Court. Supreme Court clarified. You give a list of all the donors and give it to the Election Commission. That they should be able to do. I wish they'd given them 1 week time, because the SBI asked them for 1 week or 15 days. They probably had a genuine reason. I don't think they should write roughshod about them, because 1 week the skies are not going to fall down. Now what will happen is, we'll have a list of people who are given money. I think that list should always be available, because they said we keep it in a sealed cover. Now they got maybe 20,000 covers. They have to collate all of them, make sure it's accurate, because they can't give anything inaccurately. Maybe get some auditor to check up also to make sure, because once the data is released, you can't say we made a mistake, goof up, etc. I'm sure they'll try to comply. And the second thing, on the other side, the EC will put it in the public domain. And I don't think there will be any linkage between the two. Now, Barkha, I want to make an important statement about transparency. Before this happened, elections were run on cash. to believe that elections were run without money is ridiculous. No chief election commissioner ever been able to find out in the last 50-60 years election how much money was already spent. Many of us are told they should spend 5 crores, 6 crores. It's all black money. Much of the money came from goons, from drug money, all kind of illegal money. What this did was to create transparency in as much as accounted money was paid to the political parties to a bearer bond. And the reason for the bearer bond was the vindictiveness of political parties. If they give the names, they'll be vindictive. I have donated to all political parties. My name is there in the list for last 10 years. I have made personal donation. I don't care if they're vindictive. But many people are scared because if the political parties are vindictive for giving money, there is no protection. The election commission will not protect them. The Supreme Court will not protect them. So this is the wire media to clean up the system. It will take time to create confidence, like in the US, to give money openly to PACs or whatever it is, because we need clean money. We stopped a lot of goon money, bad money, smugglers' money coming in. Now we go.
So you were a fan of the bonds.
I'm a fan of the bond because it brought in transparency, at least accounted money. It stops the inflow of bad money coming in, which vitiated. And I don't know what is this transparency when people are happy that cash comes in, goon money come in, because they can't stop the flow of money. Nobody has been able to stop the flow of money, neither the Supreme Court, nor the Chief Election Commissioner. They take some little bit of money. For example, in the elections in Karnataka, 360 crores, 370 crores were taken. I asked an IAS officer who was an observer, what will he do next? And he told me, look, if I have to go file charges against somebody, then I have to go give evidence for 10 years. I'm not prepared to go give evidence and spoil my life because the justice system is broken. He said, I will just seize it and give it to the election commissioner. Let them do what they want. I've not seen people punished for giving money to the extent it should be done. A few were. So there has been no transparency in election funding before these bonds. These bonds created greater transparency, not full transparency. Yes, that's all true, but it's much better than zero.
Okay, brief response. I need to come to the legality and the next steps to Sanjay Hegde, but brief response from Dr. Quraishi to that. That what's going to change? All you're going to do is to go back to cash. Quraishi sir.
Yeah, quite right. Now, Mr. Pai made a good point that before 2017, the 70% of all donations were coming in cash, and we were concerned about it. And we had been asking for some reform. In any case, he spoke for 2-3 minutes about the judgment. The original judgment did not say that link the purchaser of the bond with the recipient. It did not say that. For SBI to say, look, give us time to do that, when they were not even asked to do that. That is the point which is important to understand. And today, finally, they said, oh, yes, for the information you wanted, it is available with us. We'll give you tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay, let's take another excerpt from what happened in the court, and I'm bringing in Sanjay, Sumanth and Sandip right after that. This is the bench, the constitutional bench, sparring with one of India's top lawyers, Harish Salve, saying in a very biting tone, what were you doing for the last 26 days? Take a look.
I'm sorry, my lord.
Whatever you are doing under the directions of the highest court of
No, my lord. If I make a mistake, if I say Mr. X got it instead of Mr. Y got it, in a hurry to give the numbers, I could create havoc there, my lord, because ultimately...
As we take it, Mr. Salve, you are accepting that there's no difficulty in giving names of the donors who purchased the bonds and the amount they purchased the bonds. You have got no difficulty in giving details of the political parties who have purchased the particular bonds. The only difficulty is matching the purchased bond with that. But 26 days, you must have carried out at least some, say, 10,000 bonds you have been able to collate, 5,000 bonds you have been able to collate.
Quite frankly, what I saw, they were struggling with it. They were making charts which we saw were not matching. I'll tell you what has happened. No, I'll tell you candidly what has happened.
If I'm not mistaken, it was pointed out to us that the bonds had some number which under some instrument they were able to...
Yes. But that number...
That's all has to be done.
That number is not to be found in the application for purchase or in the first set of documents. The problem is that number, when number was generated, that number has been scrambled and put elsewhere. And that number has been kept secret.
So I want to bring in Sanjay Hegde now. Sanjay Hegde, I think the point both Mohan and Dr. Quraishi have made is that the Supreme Court's earlier judgment never asked for this matching. In fact, the cynics even then said that you'll get a list of those who purchased bonds, you'll get a list of those who received bonds, there'll be a whole bunch of IDs, and then it's left either Bhagwan Barose or a deep investigation to match those numbers. So today, when you see this exchange, and as one of the senior lawyers in the case, what is the import of what has happened in the Supreme Court today, Sanjay?
No, as a man of law, I was quite, a bit afraid about the Supreme Court. Often, the judgments were being taken for granted. It was as if the judgments were written in water. I do remember that during COVID, Chief Justice Bobde said that Lord Jagannath will not forgive us if we do not carry out the Rath Yatra, if we allow the Rath Yatra. 2-3 days later, it changed on an application. The government has sort of got used to the fact that if there is an inconvenient judgment, it can be slow walked, it can be set at naught. This is not a government which rushes to comply or exists in a culture of compliance with what is stated by the courts or what is required of it by the courts. So a recent example was the Enforcement Directorate director. He got extension after extension. And then when the Supreme Court said no more, the government again came back for some time, and it did get some time. Mm-hmm. So they came up again with what they thought was a plausible story. But this time, the Supreme Court said, enough is enough. You had time. Our directions were very clear. Our directions was, first tell us who bought. You have your KYC. You were required under the terms of our earlier interim order to keep all the data together, collate it, hand it over to the Election Commission. We also hand over to the Election Commission as to who encashed those bonds, when, where, as to what other inferences can be drawn. That is left to the public at large. That is a subsequent stage.
But Sanjay, you mentioned the government. Do you think the government is answerable for what's happened, or the state bank? Mohandas Pai says you can't use the two as interchangeable. What do you say?
To think that the state bank in such a matter would have taken a decision on its own is to believe in fairy tales. That's about it. We've had questions of how the state bank gave loans to particular business houses, how the state bank chairman went with the government when a particular deal was being negotiated in Australia. We have seen the proximity of the nationalized banks with the government of the day. And I do not think that a mere chairman of a nationalized bank would have done this without recourse or without prompting from the finance ministry.
Okay, so at this note, I want to actually play out what Subhash Garg, and his comments become very important because he was a defender of the bonds. He was the officer when the bonds were implemented. And not just did he say that the SBI needs 10 minutes, he told me that according to him, the SBI officials would be extremely uncomfortable at having had to go to court with the position they've taken. So Mohan, I know you think that they shouldn't be interchanged, but this is what Subhash Garg said. Take a look.
SBI's probable tactic, as I said, is to delay as much as by using the procedural spaces in the court process. The question which you asked me about SBI, I guess this, I can only guess, the SBI bosses must be quite uncomfortable in the situation which is developing.
Sandip Ghosh, let me take that to you then. Mohan doesn't agree. This is Subhash Garg. No critic of the government. The man in charge in the hot seat when the bonds were implemented. A fan of the bonds, like Mohandas Pai believes it's the least evil, as he called it, option of funding politics. But he says the SBI should not have been put in this position. This is a government decision. Mohandas Pai disagrees. Sanjay Hegde says it's a fairy tale to believe otherwise. My question is political. Why the elections are 6 weeks away? Why? How does it matter to the government if this information comes out in the data form, which is going to take months, weeks for people to collate? How does it impact the electoral result in any way? Sandip.
Barkha, first of all, I think I'm hearing a lot of conjectures, innuendos, theories, but there can be various opinions, but the facts we have to see. First of all, I think today's judgment is a damn squib. It's making really a mountain out of a molehill because nothing substantial is being achieved. What we heard was being said by the state bank chairman is they are essentially the fall guy. In Bengali, we have a saying that, DK mere boke shekano, you hit the daughter to teach a lesson to the spouse. So it is a bit of that because there is. Now, if what is being said today, what the Supreme Court finally said, that we only wanted the list of donors from State Bank of India, I think that is a very, very, a non-issue. Because you may not have got details of individually, there are thousands of bonds, somebody has paid 1 crore or 50 lakhs, you may not have had that. You already had in public domain some of the large donations who are there, because each of these companies who have bought the bonds had to declare it in their returns. And they have not declared whom they have given. If somebody had bought 250 crores of bonds or even 25 or 2 crores of bonds, all the companies would have had to declare, and that information is in public domain. What is in public domain, like you just now played up, how much each political party has received. And it is not as if the insinuations which were being made that BJP has got all the money. That is not true. BJP would have got a lion's share. It's a ruling party not only in the center, but in various states. So that is not at all surprising that they would have got a lion's share. But if DMK got 254 crores, being a state party, it is no mean sum. If a party like TMC, I forget the figures, what was declared 150 odd crores, Congress itself has got some 300, 400 crores. I don't recall the numbers.
952 crores between 2017 and the TMC's got nearly 800 crores. The numbers on the screen.
Those are none of them are small numbers. Okay.
Yeah.
The embarrassment which we are talking about, if the linking was done between, I'll come to the linking question separately, if assuming the linking was done, and that is what was intended to be done. And I think that was the wish list of people who had petitioned and who were expecting to think that linkage will come out. And then we will say Mr. A has given money to Mr. B. Mr. A has got these favors, and therefore this is the nexus. That nexus is not going to be established in the current form. And it cannot, if somebody again does what I was hearing, that they do their 2 + 2 = 5, how will the public or any intelligence, whether it's media or anybody, do, unless it's conjecture? If that is not there, if there is only a list of people who are donors, and here is a list of people who received it, and then you try to assume that, okay, BJP has received X amount, that must have come from Mr. A, and because Mr. A or A2, and it has gone to them, and somewhere else, that is absolutely in the realm of conjecture. That is not going to solve the problem. Now, there may have been an attempt to delay. The only reason, granting without admitting or without knowing the facts, if they were the only reason State Bank or the government assuming that they prompted the State Bank would have been to delay, was if they assumed that there was this, the order meant linking the two things. That would have caused a problem for everybody. And, not the least for the people, other parties who have been crying horse other than CPIM, who said we have not received any bond. You think the people who got 950 crores, if tomorrow the names were revealed from whom they had got, it will not cause embarrassment either to them.
It's a good question.
So that was, if there was a non-issue, was because of that. So therefore, whatever you may say, how it was perceived or how it is being made out, I think, the Supreme Court to some extent had to therefore bring out the angst in firing the State Bank, this thing. But if this is all that you are wanting, that Mr. Garg is also absolutely right. It can be given in 2 minutes or 10 seconds. That is not the issue. The problem will be, and the problem which Mr. Salve explained, that nobody is willing to listen. How I know of people who bought bonds. When you buy the bond, there is no serial number mentioned there. When you deposit the bond, there is no serial number. Then, as I said, serial numbers are put and they're scrambled. And that's how the other side, because there was nobody wanted officially. People could have unofficially known who has given money to whom. That's a different story.
Okay.
But technically, nobody could have got that.
I think you make a good point that what does it all amount to? And so,
And the last point, with due respect to Dr. Quraishi, Election Commission has got some ridiculous limits of 75 lakhs, etc., for a Lok Sabha election. Don't we all know how much is spent even in a panchayat election? Your guest who you had on television 2 days ago on your other show, podcast, Rashid Kidwai, has gone on record to write how Mr. Motilal Vora's job, he used to have an early dinner and then walk in 24 Ashoka Road campus to count the number of trucks and vehicles were coming in, carrying whatever. And people like Rashid, who had access to him, would actually get news by having those after dinner post-pandal walks with him. And while Mr. Motilal Vora quietly counted. This is how everybody has done collection.
Okay. You made a lot of points, and Dr. Quraishi and Sanjay Hegde and everybody else will respond. But Sumanth has been waiting very patiently, and I think Sumanth, you tend to agree with Sandip today that it's a mountain out of a molehill. At the end of it, it's symbolic more than practical. It's not really going to clean up funding. It's more about the Supreme Court showing that it can stand up for a principle. Its value is symbolic, not real. That's the kind of point you made on Twitter. Go ahead.
Only one point I'll make before we go in. I think there is huge issue of estoppel and legality if the two things are linked. Right or wrong, the government and people had assured donors that it'll remain anonymous. If you are now going by retrospective, it is going to be a huge blow to India's any kind of law.
Okay. That's something to think about. Sanjay will come in on that. Go ahead, Sumanth. Yeah, Sumanth.
Barkha, 2-3 quick points. First of all, this whole argument that it will take 3 months to collate it is bunkum. Everybody knows that. And I'm amazed that the Supreme Court actually swallowed that it will take 3 months and 4 months to match. Remember, there is a unique number. However scrambled it is later on, there is a unique number for each bond, which is not visible. The point is, these bonds are in tranches. It's not like you have to go and search 40,000 bonds to find a match for one bond. The bond would have to be encashed within 15 days by the political party. So you don't have to search 40,000 bonds for each and every match. So this whole argument that I'm amazed, honestly amazed, which is why I said that State Bank, my last recollection was State Bank had 250,000 employees, right? So it would not take more than at the most a week to match these 40,000. Everybody knows that. I mean, we are not even around. Everybody knows. And let's face it, I worked in IT. There needs to be a unique identifier if we are to link A with B. So there has to be a unique identifier somewhere. It's only a question of throwing enough people at the job to get the job done. And I'm sure that it could have been done. So let's forget this whole argument that it will take 4 months to collate 40,000 bond details. Now the point I'm trying to make is the issue of wanting to conceal these names, which the government seems to have initiated through SBI. I don't think it is simply because of the donors' names coming out in public domain or the list of two separate things. Now, what if these are unknown entities? What if the names turn out to be entities nobody has heard of? What if they are shell companies? What if they are proxies? What if they are fronts? In fact, that is a bigger concern because that will open up a whole new can of worms. This will, I mean, the usual suspects are expected to have donated to their to the usual parties is not going to damage anybody. I think the public have already discounted that. Electorally, it's not going to even have a small impact. People already assume all this has happened. Now, my point is, what if these are unknown names? Nobody knows who these companies are and where the money has come from. So I think that will open up a much bigger can of worms. And my personal
hang on. I think Mohan is wanting to interject briefly on your point on shell companies. Mohan,
Barkha, it's ridiculous to say if there's a shell company, you can't trace it. Let us remember, if a shell company buys a bond, there will be a debit in his bank account. There has to be a money transfer from somewhere. The money transfer has to come through the banking channel. The money transfer can come through equity or through revenues or something else. You can easily track it. I don't know why
Who
he's
has to
making
trace it?
this
Who
argument.
has to track
It can
it,
be
sir?
done. You can track it because
It
you
can
know
be
the name.
done.
Please,
I'm
Sumanth,
not
keep
saying
quiet.
it can't be done, sir. Let me
Sumanth,
finish.
keep quiet. Sumanth, keep
Sir,
quiet.
I did not interrupt you. I did
listen.
not interrupt
Acha,
you.
acha,
Sir,
1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute.
Let me
One,
finish.
acha,
Finish my point.
1 minute,
Let
1
me
minute,
finish my point.
1 minute, gentlemen, 1
No, no,
minute.
let me
Mohan,
finish my
Barkha,
point, sir.
let me
acha.
finish.
Okay,
Barkha, let
okay.
me finish. What
Okay,
he's saying
Mohan.
is shell company comes, you can't do it. There is shell company. The company has a name. It'll have at least two shareholders. There'll be a bank account. Money has to come in from the. You can trace the money. You can have a forensic. The money has to be in the bank. The bank will debit and give a bond, so it can be traced. Yes, shell companies are difficult, but it requires some effort to trace. The name of the
Okay.
company can be there.
Okay.
Now,
Barkha, can I make my point?
technical
Can
point.
I make my
Now,
point?
yes.
Yeah.
Now let's
Barkha,
Sumanth
my
respond.
my
Barkha, let me
point
finish.
is.
Barkha, let me finish.
Let him speak.
Let me finish. See, Hassabe made an important point. He said in the application, there is no number. The bond may have a number. The bond having a number and the application made, there is no correlation. That's the point he made. Then he said the number of a bond is scrambled. So you see, there is a technical issue which we don't have details to come to a judgment. The point I want to make is, if you think a State Bank of India after 250 years will take a chance that it can go to SB, go to the Supreme Court on the 6th of March and say we can't do it, the Supreme Court will accept it. The Supreme Court will accept it without verification. The Supreme Court will not make efforts to verify and they can get away. I think it's being foolish. It's cuckoo land. I don't think
Can I respond to that?
Okay. Please,
Look,
let's
Barkha, let me
speak.
respond. You have to allow me to
Yeah.
respond. It's not fair.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
2 points. 2 points. If the Supreme Court had called for an expert committee to evaluate whether what State Bank was saying was factual and whether then decided that yes, what they were saying was correct, it's a different issue. It was decided between last week when they filed the application and now. My point is not that shell companies cannot be traced. My point is it adds to the embarrassment if it is known that certain political parties have been receiving funding from unknown entities. It can be traced, but who's to trace it? This is like, we will bring back all the money from the Swiss banks. The has been going on saying that, it started with saying that we will reveal who invested in Swiss banks, but now we can't reveal even who invested in State Bank.
I know, that's the meme doing the rounds today. The meme doing the rounds today. Okay, lot of things to discuss. Let's bring in Dr. Quraishi, then Sanjay Hegde, because a lot of points have been raised. Let me actually just get in here and mute Sumanth for a moment. Yes, Dr. Quraishi, I want to ask you, while this debate is taking place, there is also a dramatic development in the Election Commission with the sudden resignation of Mr. Arun Goyal. Now, since we're talking about elections and transparency, we must actually take a look at this sudden exit. Again, a lot of conjectures, theories. His statement only says for personal reasons. There's a petition to the Supreme Court by a Congress leader also raising questions about how the rest of the election commission should be appointed before the elections are to take place. I just wanted your quick take on this alongside everything else that we are discussing. Also, a lot of points made about the EC's limits on public spending.
Yeah. Let me deal with the easier one first. Public spending, I would like to correct, I think it was Mr. Sumanth who mentioned the
Sandip mentioned. Sandip, yes.
Sorry, Sandip ji. 70 lakh limit is not put by the Election Commission. It is put by the government through the Law Ministry. So let that be clear that the Election Commission is happy to make it rational. We have been asking in the political parties what is rational. They don't have as a unanimous opinion. Therefore, that's a different issue. The second, there's a sudden development in the Election Commission. Frankly, I would not like to speculate too much if he says he is living on personal ground, although it sounds very difficult because he had a secure 4 years tenure and he was going to be the CEC, the most important job he could aspire to have. Leaving that, but even if he has chosen to do that, now what? Well, the government will appoint 2 more within the next 1 week, no problem. Till the government appoints, suppose the government is not able to appoint in 2 weeks, it will take a month, Doesn't matter because there is a CEC. CAC has run the organization for 60 years, and this CEC has been around for 2-3 years. He is totally hands-on. He can easily handle this, and as I like to say, that actually the election of India is on autopilot. There are 12 million government servants doing it, brightest IAS officers, brightest IPS officers. Even if we just relax in our office and in the drawing room, the election will happen beautifully because it is an autopilot. All that we do, complaints will come out about the model code of conduct, where we have to sit in judgment like a court and give a judgment.
Yeah. Quraishi Saab, Mohandas Pai, with whom you started on an abrasive note, is clapping, and you are also clapping. And my purpose that both of you would smile at each other at the end of this program has been served. Mohan, you're on mute. I want you to briefly respond, and then I want to come to Sanjay.
Barkha, look, the Chief Election Commission throughout history has done a fabulous job. They conducted the largest election in the world. We abuse them, we attribute motives to them, we say they're appointed by so-and-so. We have had free and fair elections all these years. And it's done an unbelievable job. There's no country in the world which has done it at the scale with the fidelity that they have done. They require our applause. But we should not abuse them. We should not cast aspersions of them because small minds throw stones at giants when they do their work. Because they uphold the credibility of our democracy. And for anybody to come and point fingers for every small things to do, yes, we can quarrel with them. We can say they're not doing their job. That is all easy. But to question the credibility of the election, like some people have a habit to do, including the EVM, is totally ridiculous. They have discharged their duty. Our democracy is based on them, their credibility. And they've done a great job. I'm so happy Dr. Quraishi is standing up and saying, look at the job they've done. And then they can't control anything. It is through 12 lakh people, so many causes, so many things happening. Yeah. No single person can control it. Please, I think it's fantastic, Quraishi Saab. Thank you very much.
Okay, these are the moments that we live for on these programs, which otherwise have so much acrimony. But Sanjay Hegde, the tough questions. The tough questions are, without the collation, what is the meaning? Sandip Ghose is also a very important legal question. If I have purchased a bond on the guarantee of anonymity, right? I'm an individual, I'm a corporate. By the law of the land, I have been promised anonymity. And now the Supreme Court comes and says, break that anonymity, right? Isn't there a contravention of law? Isn't there a contravention of contract? I think it's an important legal question to address. Sanjay Hegde, please go ahead.
Well, on that point, there were many people, many companies in the world which bought 2G licenses. The Supreme Court, when it struck it down, said undo everything. On a smaller scale, people bought
because that was a manipulated case. This is as far as we know, there's no manipulation here.
No,
there was
yeah. See, listen. Once the Supreme Court declares what the Constitution is and what the Constitution requires, if anything has happened in the intermediate, which it finds to be unconstitutional, it tries to rectify it. So that's the normal process. Now, somebody bought a flat in a Supertech tower. That tower was not legit. It came down. We saw that, right? So these people who invested in electoral bonds out of the love of donating money to political parties, obviously were such babes in the woods that they just went with their extra money, went through banking channels, gave a KYC, and then transacted it through various hands for 15 days when it was valid. And then finally some politicians cashed it. Yes. We do think that it was all legit. We absolutely, I think the public of India will no doubt have great sympathy.
But they didn't think they were doing anything illegal. That's the point. They were acting within the purview of the law. Whatever you may say about the nexus between corporates and politics, and I think there's a larger discussion needed there on who or what funds politics. They didn't think that they were breaking the law. That's Sandip's point, Sanjay. Sorry. Okay. Sandip interjection and then Sanjay. Yeah.
I know for a fact that many corporates, not the types which we are talking about who have done, smaller corporates were extremely happy with the bond for a number of reasons. I'll give you two reasons which I know for a fact. First is, not many people are comfortable carrying suitcases. If somebody wanted to carry a suitcase, he would rather say that, sir, take this bond and you put it wherever it is. And that's a far more cleaner thing. And if somebody is doing that, he's not doing, it's unlike that buying a flat where there are all legal things, you have not, that's a matter of due diligence to see whether they had all legal clearances. Here you're doing something which has been approved by an act of parliament. So people have done it on that. So you can't really fault them to say they were babes in the
Fair
woods.
enough. Fair enough.
Who have done. And even if I recall, Sanjay, you were in the court, so you would have heard, I recall one statement by one of the judges when the hearing was going on. He said the problem with cash is if 1 crore is donated, what reaches the headquarters is only 25 lakhs because people along the way take it. And here everything comes to the center over there. And that was also a fact. A lot of, I know of people who went and gave money to the headquarters, and when there are demands in the local level, they said, we have paid there, now go and talk to them. When you're paying cash locally, neither the center knows, nobody knows, and so it's unfair to say people were doing it with a nefarious motive when buying the bonds.
Let Sanjay respond. Now, lots of points made. Sanjay, please. Sanjay.
So, okay, whatever be the motives, the fact is, if the court says that something is unconstitutional, then it is unconstitutional. And if it has to be reworked, it has to be reworked. So that's why I gave the 2G example also. And by the by, Mr. Ghose, that was the exact example that I gave the court about 1 crore, which Harshad Mehta allegedly gave Mr. Narasimha Rao. And I said that at that point of time, you needed a suitcase when there were no 2,000 rupee notes. And now all that you require is an envelope. But that envelope, why is it given? What for is it given? Was there a quid pro quo? Was it protection money? All these and more questions are going to come up now. And they were there even earlier. And that is precisely why many of us went to the Supreme Court and said that, look, this is an illegitimate tool which strikes at the...
But now what happens, Sanjay? Sanjay, what happens now without the collation, without the matching of the purchaser and the recipient? What happens? What does that amount to?
Let us put it this way, that we Indians have shown that we are pretty good at data science. You have 2 points of data. Just see how much more comes out.
Okay, very interesting. Let's start taking last comments, Sumanth, and then to Mohan and Dr. Quraishi. Sumanth, Raman. Let me unmute you, Sumanth.
Yeah.
1 second,
okay.
Sumanth.
Okay.
Go ahead.
But this is exactly the point that I was going to make, which is what Sanjay just said, that since the dates are known, you will be able to do some level of matching using data science, and you will be able to get certain elements of information. Now, everybody in India is going to be playing detective from 15th onwards. If indeed this data is actually put out on 15th, or maybe the EC will go to the Supreme Court and say something, maybe we don't have a website, we don't have space on our website to upload it, or something equally ridiculous. It's possible.
I doubt it.
But once it comes out, people will start playing detective. And I can assure you that at least in some cases, we will be able to do that match, though not in all cases.
Okay. Mohan, before I give Dr. Quraishi the last one, Mohandas,
Barkha, very many companies who are paragons of good corporate governance, who are reckoned to be honest by everybody, would have given the electoral bonds as the means of ensuring clean money comes to politics, our democracy prospers. They have no other ulterior motive. Okay. Yes, some of them could be doing it. I don't know. I don't have any conjecture. But, clean money has come. Good companies are given. I given my own personal check. Okay, my name is there. I said I'll have a name because I don't care if it can be vindictive, because I know the CC will not support me. The Supreme Court will not think. I will take care of it. I can stand up and talk. But, these companies are scared. Now, all of them will be shut down. What happens in the future? Goons will come. Drug money will come like it happened in Tamil Nadu. Goon money will come, drug money will come, corrupt money will come, corrupt contractors. I once asked a very senior political leader from Karnataka who rose to the highest office in the land. I asked him, sir, why do you give seats to very corrupt people, corrupt contractors, etc.? We know they're all corrupt. Then he told me, man, do you give money to me to run the party? I need money to run the party. You don't give money. Every day you abuse us. Every day you criticize us, but don't give money. How can you run the party? We are not used to giving money to political parties. Political parties require money. Democracy requires money. I want to tell you in Karnataka, after speaking some 20 candidates, they say for the Lok Sabha, they have to spend 20 crore rupees. Minimum 20 crore rupees in Karnataka is the rich state. Where will the money come? It will all come in cash. How will the cash be recovered? Drug money, contractors, corruption. As it is, Karnataka is a very corrupt state. Corruption has gone up manifold. Do you want to suffer like that? Or do you want good companies, others to give money? I would like Sanjay to give money. I would like Ghose to give money. I would like Sumanth to give money. You should give money. All of us should give some money to keep our democracy clean. But we don't give money. And we sit back and abuse them. We criticize Supreme Court, criticize the SBI, criticize the CEC. CEC should not be criticized for all this. And why do we do that? We must invest in democracy. We have not invested in democracy. We must change the process, make sure money is clean. That's my prayer. And I think it's a big setback of the Supreme Court decision.
Okay, a very different perspective from what I think we're going to hear from Dr. Quraishi. Last word to you, sir, before we close.
Yeah. No, the last word is whatever Mr. Pai said, I entirely agree with him, because cash transactions are replaced by banking transactions. And I've written many times, not for the sake of argument here, I had been offering a 30-second solution, which was just declare the donor and the recipient. That's all. Keep the bond alive, no problem. Which is good. All the good things which he counted, he is absolutely right. Just declare these two.
So just end the anonymity. Just end the anonymity.
Finally, if you allow me, Barkha, in fact, I would say that bypass the entire debate. I have been offering a very different alternative system. Alternative system may create a national election fund where everybody can donate fearlessly. Well, there will be no victimization, and from the electoral fund, the money should be distributed on the basis of your electoral performance. For 100 rupees for every vote, 7,000 crore will be available by check with dignity, no arm twisting, no corruption. The money will come with dignity. They are not even debating it.
Yeah, I think nobody really wants to clean up politics and its funding. Sandip, are you wanting to? Were you wanting to say something?
I didn't follow Dr. Quraishi is that if both are declared, why do you need a bond? It can be done by a check. You don't need to have another instrument like a bond. But the problem with the
in fact, I'm glad you mentioned this. In fact, my exact language which I wrote in my article, which Mr. Nariman appreciated, I said, if you are so much in love with the bond, please stay with it, just declare.
So, but the second point, Dr. Quraishi, is the concept of the donations earlier, which were allowed and which was made. All companies like Tata's and all formed a trust, and for the governance purpose, they had to show a formula, which is the formula which you are saying, pro rata with the number of votes. But that doesn't work. So today, therefore, Congress will say, just because I got lower votes, you're giving me a lower share of the contribution giving to BJP, but if you give me a lower share, how will I ever beat BJP? You have to.
It's a chicken and egg, chicken and egg argument.
Larger problem. So my view is that electoral bonds were far from perfect, but it was certainly a good beginning. And by throwing the baby and bathwater out, I think we have gone retrograde. That will be my
Okay, Dr. Quraishi, I think we must have another debate on all your formulas for cleaning up political funding, but we leave it there to Sandip Ghose, Sumanth, Raman, Mohandas, Sanjay, Hegde, and Dr. Quraishi. And we started with a little bit of aggression. We ended with amiability, and that's how good conversation should be. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and to our audience. Thank you for watching.
My apologies to Mr. Pai.
No, sir.
Me too. I'm your admirer, Dr. Quraishi. You know that. I'm a great admirer.
You're very
kind. Thank you. Lovely note to end on. Thank you very much. And to our audience, see you tomorrow. Mojo's Story has always made a commitment to its viewers to go to where the story is. And as you can see here, we are at the epicenter of the Israel war on Gaza. We are right at the front line, about 1 mile from the Gaza Strip, as the Israeli military gets ready with its tanks and its gunners to begin its final frontal assault that will take troops into Gaza. As we said, we are not like other organizations. We believe in giving you all sides of the story objectively and as much as possible from the ground. And that's exactly what we're doing here, covering the biggest global story today from the epicenter of the war zone. So please, we need your support. Support us, become a Mojo member, subscribe to us, spread the word, and thank you for your support.